This is a dangerous groups that we're dealing with now. It was a nightmare.
Flight 807, you're clear for landing, runway 7, Bravo.
All personnel report to the nearest tornado shelter. This is not a drill.
If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Now, as usual, I'll give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, or something that's going on in the community, or maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it in. So let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 1. City Board prepping 20 Federal Street, the building downtown in downtown Youngstown. Now, the question is, why is this news? Property, land, and investments are all important factors in keeping a city afloat. City Board officials are prepping 20 Federal Street to be sold and put to good use. This is news because keeping this property up to code is a driving factor in sparking growth in the downtown area. Growth is what everybody likes. Now, at the moment, Youngstown officials are in talks to sell the property to the highest bidder once it's up to code. That's why story number 1 made it in this week. Story number 2. 2 officers in Youngstown will be moving up in ranks. Youngstown's Muhammad Awad will be moving from sergeant to lieutenant, and McDonald's Michael Sobanovsky will be moving from patrolman to detective sergeant. Good job, and good luck on your advancements. Story number 3. YSU is getting some needed donations. One donor, Chandler M. Cawley, came to the rescue, gifted YSU $5 million for a new Excellence Training Center building. YSU has been reaching out to donors for support after a brutal hit brought on by COVID-19 and the current attention being placed on the increasing cost of education in America. Period. Now, this story proves that generosity and philanthropy are still alive and well in an uncertain market. The center will be used for technical training and education. All I can say is please, please, when you get it, don't forget to hire a vet. Story number 4. Getting ready for school in these tough times. Inflation is hitting everyone's pocketbooks pretty hard, and area residents are still scrambling to get things in order for the school year. COVID-19 is another factor weighing heavy on everyone's mind because some school officials are having to make some very, very tough decisions on whether to allow students to attend class without masks or any protective measures. Sports programs have also been hit hard. About 3 games were canceled this week, showing that this virus is still nagging at the local education process. My advice is, if you see 2 teenagers cuddling in the woods, knowing that they have to be in school but they are not there, there's a good chance that they don't give a damn about COVID-19 and they should be in school. That's a little bit of word advice from the Mediator. Story number 4. Story number 5. Tracking Youngstown's crime spree could reveal territorial street wars. Could it? Or could it just be people just not blatantly knowing what's going on and killing each other because they have nothing else to do but seek revenge? In all reality, it amounts to nothing. That's what story number 5 is all about. Digging deeper into the current crime spree could lead many to believe that there are territorial street wars taking place. But in all reality, nothing is getting done, nothing is getting solved. Current investigations are showing drugs, retaliation, and other things to be factors in many of these heartbreaking stories. Very heartbreaking. Youngstown has a rich history of gang, drug, and violent activity rooting in street conflicts that are playing out in the end stupidity. Pardon my directness, but that's what it is. It amounts to nothing. You kill one person, another person rises, sells drugs, kill another. Another person rises, gets all the money, kill another. The current state of the political and policing process is what got this story in. Revenge, all for nothing. Killing, all for nothing. Going to prison, all for nothing. What is it for? Story number 6. Examining Youngstowns prosecutors and legal process. Crime, violence, vengeance, and chaos. What is it for? Is it to balance things out? Is it to get the vengeance that you so much desire without walking away? That's what we're going to find out this week's episode of The Mediator. When you see a spike in crime, folks, it is normal for people to wonder what is taking place in the legal process because they want answers. After the resignation of an assistant prosecutor, Don Cantalamessa, and a lot of attention that is being placed on Paul Gaines. So Don Cantalamessa, she's out. Paul Gaines, the attention is on his office because there's been a lot going on in Youngstown in Mahoning Valley. Now there is a new shift in the blame game, with area residents very, very concerned about the current crime situation in the city. Some victims of the crime spree feel that the lenient legal process, the procedures, are to blame for the current state of Youngstown's crime rate and crime situation. So what will we learn in story number 6? Stay tuned, folks. Story number 7 in the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that made it in this week. Stories for you. For a moment there, I thought we were in the X-Files, but it's not the X-Files, folks. This is reality. People are being possessed by all types of aliens. They're entering people locally. And they're going out and shooting and blowing and killing people. Scary out here. The crime, the election, and the future of the valley. Candidates have been taking to the airways voicing their plans for the future of the valley. After a summer filled with homicides, chaos, crime, and a number of local residents wondering about their future and very unsettled at the current plans put in place to combat future problems. There's a lot of uncertainty and unsettledness going on. 2 people were killed on the west side this past week, and the data shows that this year, somewhere between over 99 to over 100 people have been shot in the state of Ohio, with many of these people in the Youngstown and Columbus area. Now, this is showing that there has been no improvements in Youngstown's crime rate. People are wondering why. The next mayoral election is just around the corner, and at the moment, the city's crime rate could be yet another blow to Mayor Jamel Tito Brown's re-election bid. In the end, we are left to wonder, what is causing all this? Brothers and sisters killing each other for some white stuff, for revenge, for chaos, corruption, for some type of affiliation to street credibility. Story number 7 is just heating up, folks, and that's why I made it this week. We've got to stop the violence. Story number 8 in the top local headline and developing news story that made it this week. Someday there will be peace on this planet. Someday there will be peace. Someday there will be joy. Someday. Until then, let's carry on with business. The local business climate has to stay in the news, and some people wonder why. Because we need money. Now is not a good time to forget about the local business climate, local business period. Somewhere between 80% to 90% of local businesses took out PPP loans and received grants to stay afloat. That means that they are suffering. So many businesses had to close their doors this year due to COVID-19. Now that in itself shows that the future of the local business market is still in question. Business stories have to stay alive, folks, because without entrepreneurs, there is minimal cash flow and there's a very there's a good chance that there won't be any jobs and opportunities. You always wonder, where are these entrepreneurs hearing the voices from? They're hearing it from the entrepreneur lords, the heavens. God himself is sending people down to make a way. They may seem crazy and they may seem a little odd, but they're here for a reason. The main talking point in this story is what got it in this week is because we need businesses. You have to have business, or there will be no economic activity, no innovation, no thought, no feelings. That's why story number 8 made it to the top this week. Well, those are our top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back with top 8 international headlines and developing news stories. You're in the Mediator. Me, Brian West. I'll be right back. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Listen, I know everybody's been watching the news about Afghanistan, but I've got a little different story. One day I was in PA, and I met this guy, Zagorski, one of my Italian friends. And we were riding around, and this wasn't Afghanistan, this was America. We ride around the rough part of America. And we had got on the conversation about enlisting. And we decided to go in. We went in. And we were hearing stories about people coming back from Afghanistan and fighting the war on terror. We went through boot camp together. And the drill sergeant let us know this type of enemy that we're facing is brutal. We got no face. When we see it, we've got to kill, destroy. No Care Bears around here. If you get in trouble, I'll stick my blood up and scald your skull, and then talk about having sex with somebody's skull. I couldn't believe it. That's when I knew that war was ugly. The people on the battlefield meant business. After that day, when I got my release papers, I got busted up, got to come home. I didn't look back, folks. I started reading story after story to be beneficial to the greater good of America. My buddy Zagorski later called me up and he said he needed a job. And I said, Zagorski, we're going to have to share our benefits. And we're going to have to create a place for mediation. And that's how I became the mediator. That's my story, folks. And I'm sticking to it. Let's get to it. Story number 1. How could giving felons the right to vote change things? Big headline. Criminals, felons, and individuals caught in the justice web are doing everything they can to be a part of democracy and the process. And some decisions made in North Carolina is keeping this story alive, because by giving felons the right to vote, you could change things. Now, this could really impact the transition process after criminals do their time and are released back into society. Redemption plays a huge factor in this ongoing story. That's why I made it this week. Big headline. Story number 2. Many in old school America are still having it rough. The new school, they're having it rough with the new school philosophy. The new school. Numerous new headlines about the wealth gap compared to old school and new school Americans have been in and out of the headlines lately. New school America seems to be battling with old school policies, such as education policies, laws, and financial matters, while old school America seems to be battling with work ethic and social concerns. Old school parents are being betrayed when it comes to new school money. And new school money is what the new school wants. They're doing anything to get it. Some of them are even burying their parents to get that insurance policy. This story is deep. Now, this story made it in because it's affecting the wealth gap. And it's making people ruthless, scandalous, nasty. Data shows that new school Americans are having a hard time keeping up with the old school policies, and they don't give a care about the profits. The biblical wisdom put in place And some old school people don't neither. That's what story number 2 made in this week. It's getting ruthless, bad, greedy, savages. That's what it made in this week. Story number 3. What does the Supreme Court have to do with diplomacy, the border, immigration, and a load of other laws that govern how and why people migrate to America have a lot to do with Supreme Court decisions. This often plays a factor in the process of diplomacy. The main dilemma taking place in this story is the simple fact that people are breaking the law to get into the United States for refuge, asylum. And the cost to care for these people and vet them is expensive. The Supreme Court is set to revive Trump-era remain in Mexico immigration policies, which could really push back on activity already taking place at the border under Joe Biden. In this story, this is what I'm telling you. If you are living comfortably and one day that comfort was gone and you had to flee to another country, how would you feel? How would you vote? And how would you decide on what is right and what is wrong? This is what's taking place in story number 3. Some people haven't been through anything like this, and some people have. Story number 4, silent oil wars. Battles in the oil industry have quietly been in and out of the headlines. One story that put the attention on these headlines, to be specific, is an oil fire off of the coast of Mexico. Small fracking stories have also been in and out of the headlines when it comes to concerns about fossil fuels. Now, the growing stories about the importance of America's goal to be energy independence is what bumped this story in. The halt of the Keystone Oil Pipeline project has really shined some light on the importance of headlines like this. And headlines all over the place about just energy independence, fossil fuels, electric cars. Now, the talk now is on Biden's plan and what he feels will work and won't work when it comes to America's energy discussions, if he even has a plan, a valid one. Now, oil plays a huge part in how America rides the energy wave, if you have not noticed by now. Another story that made it is that the offshore oil spill has reportedly killed at least 5 people and has left about 6 injured, according to a BBC report. Now, this is 6 weeks after a gas leak in an underground Pemex pipeline caused a fire that also put the attention on the oil business in the Gulf of Mexico. Story number 4 could just be heating up, especially as energy talk continues. People need these fossil fuels, and that's why story number 4 made it this week. Well, those are our top 4 international headlines in developing news stories. I'll be right back with the top 4, so don't go anywhere. You're on the Mediator with me, Brian West. I'll be right back. If you want to check out the stories that almost made it in or did make it in, go to our Twitter feed on our website. Check out everything. All of the sources are there. And go to the website. Welcome back. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. I'll tell you this one story. I was in the hospital some time ago, and this is when I was on active duty. These stories are because we're getting around this September anniversary to fight on terrorism, and we see all this stuff going on. But I met a guy named Stively when I was in the hospital, and I was pretty much out of my mind. I lost some brain activity, and I came out of my room one day, and I was geared up for battle, and Stively looked at me and said, "Brian, what the hell are you doing?" You know, he looked at me, and I was possessed.
Hashlab Shola.
That's what usually causes war. But maybe if it gets too bad, we'll have to eventually join hands and be at peace. Let's get to it, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 5. What can intelligence teach us about foreign engagements? In what looks like a failed mission in Afghanistan, analysts are now focusing on the intelligence factor. Generals are on the ground, and they have gone on the record saying that they made it clear to top-level officials that there was no way to win in Afghanistan. And as the U.S. backpedals, it is clear that they were right. Now the focus is on why people are on the ground not being allowed to make critical decisions. So why they're not being listened to? Now, this seems to be the case in a number of stories still in circulation about wars in the Middle East and abroad. People on the ground want more control. Now, these are repetitive stories that have been making headlines over the years about generals voicing their concerns about communication and a lack of control when it comes to decisions made on the ground. Now, another thing that analysts will be focusing on is the importance of losing Afghanistan. How much was in this territory? How much is this loss going to cost us? This is period. How much is a loss? Now, the big question is, if there is 100% pullout, how will the war game change strategically? So if we decide to just get up and leave everybody, how could this change everything strategically on the battlefield? Is that territory that important? Now, the big thing is that only time will tell what side the pendulum will shift to in this ongoing story as Afghanistan creeps in to top headlines. It's staying into the top headlines because at the moment people are just kind of questioning about this, and that's why story number 5 made it this week. How important is Afghanistan? How is it important that we stay there? How is it important that we get out and regroup? So there's a lot going on in story number 5. That's why I made it this week. Story number 6. A low blow from Afghanistan. A $3.5 trillion bill to transform America, and why the future is looking very, very expensive. Story number 6 is clear. The war in Afghanistan has literally raped America. Now, analysts are all over this story because whatever has taken place in the war on terror has cost a lot of lives and money. The sad part about this story is that the war rages on after a car bomb hit near a Kabul green zone, killing 6 people, including the attackers. Now, making moves. This is making moves to restructure America even difficult, and it now leaves Congress to decide what to do with the new money and the $3.5 trillion bill with the intentions to transform America. So they're still debating on the floor on whether to pass and what to do and how to get this bill through. The future is looking very expensive, and it's clear it's looking even more expensive for the next generation and for many aiming for retirement. This could, if you were planning for retirement, this could mean reinvesting just to keep that goal alive. Now, in short, make it short and sweet, the goal for retirement and retiring for some has already faded away. That means that some people are just giving up on that dream of sitting back home and catching up on movies you missed during the 80s. Some people, for some, that's fading away. That's why story number 6 almost made it to the top 2 this week. Story number 7 in the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. You know, just got to keep going. You know, if you don't see the light, eventually somebody will find it. You know, this tunnel is looking long, and it's looking like we've been on this journey before. But we got to keep on chugging along. Story number 7. Is the war against COVID-19 unconstitutional? Big question. America is not a country that's used to mandates. And in every strategy used to combat COVID-19, mandates have been in the solution. Mandatory vaccines, mandatory masks, all over the place, mandatory shutdowns. America also saw this in Obama's healthcare strategy by making it mandatory to apply and obtain health insurance. And now COVID-19 has sparked a very, very heated debate about not only healthcare, but what is constitutional when dealing with a health crisis, and if the war against COVID-19 is itself unconstitutional. The meat of this topic is not about how COVID-19 has been handled, but what people have been literally forced to do in a country that has freedom and justice for all in its founding documents. Goldman Sachs and a busload of companies have started to mandate vaccines for staff members and visitors. The story is still developing. Story number 8 in the top international headline and developing news story that made it this week. Shortages across the board and plenty of gaps to fill. As long as they don't touch my peanuts, I need that protein. As long as they don't touch my vitamin C, I need that orange juice. That's poetry, baby. You won't get it from Shakespeare. And you won't get it from Alfred Hitchcock, nor Edgar Allan Poe, nor any African American scholar. But you will get it from the Mediator. Guarantee it. Air in potato chip bags, watered down solutions, and smaller portions at mixed prices, some at max prices. That's very scary. Now, these are all signs of inflation and price adjustments. Are you trying to cheat us to make a buck? Shortages mean not enough workers on the workroom floor also, especially when demand is high. Need workers. Shortages. That's bad. Accountability is everything in this dwindling market, and there are plenty of gaps that need to be filled. But filling these gaps has still been a little slow due to the COVID-19 ripple effect. Some people are using COVID-19 as an excuse not to get up for work and collect a paycheck from the taxpayers. People have fallen behind on their rent and other bills in the process. This is bad. So why am I still smiling? Because I got hope. The biggest talking point in this story is how will America fill these gaps? Folks, at the end of the day, it's clear that you have to learn from the people suffering. Because suffering, it'll either kill you or make you stronger. And if you're stronger, you have nothing left to fear but accepting more strength. Oh, my poetry is so deep. It's deep. Oh. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local and international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. I hope you got something out of today's program. I always get something out doing the research. I am only kidding. Please don't take me. We'll take the stories seriously, but the jokes are on the house. As usual, I'd like to thank all the news outlets, the journalists, the people on the front lines. You deserve all the credit. I'm just a mediator, stuck in the middle to give you a smile at the end of your day after reading some stories that could possibly impact you and to keep you informed. It's good to see that we're still waking up and seeing the sunshine. So be blessed. If you want to show us some support here at Method, it doesn't take much. All you have to do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Thank you so much for tuning in this week, folks. Have a good week. Stay safe. Believe in something. Stay hopeful and stay grateful. And if somebody is saying it's the end, smack them in the face and say it. Tell them to be optimistic. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. Have a good week, everybody. Thank you for tuning to the Mediator, me, Brian West. And never forget, 9/11 will always help us remember the sign and the symbols of peace. Peace, everybody.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.